Meeting of the Urban Renewal Commission on May 6th, Wednesday. Shall we go, starting with the commission, go around the room and introduce ourselves?
Doug Neely, Urban Renewal Commission.
Graham Peterson, Urban Renewal Commission.
Alice Norris, Urban Renewal Commissioner.
Don Slack, Renewal Commissioner.
Commissioner Nancy Walters.
Jim Nasita, Urban Renewal Commissioner.
Larry Patterson, City Manager.
Out there, please.
Okay. Or did you, I'm the representative.
You went to sleep. Dan Brutler, can you call?
Great. That takes care of our roll call, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Future agenda items. I know Mr. Nasita sent an email today, and this is for the retreat.
Yes, I wanted to discuss the agenda for the retreat and see if we could make some suggestions for it.
Sure, certainly, go ahead.
I sent out an email this morning talking about my interest in examining and exploring a more intense residential development of downtown, and proposing that we retain or invite the planner who drafted the downtown plan that Metro had supported or funded in the 1990s, which I'm particularly intrigued by some of the concepts in there from an urban design standpoint. And I wanted to sound out the interest of the commission in inviting him to make a presentation on that plan and discussing dense residential development in the downtown core at the commission retreat.
Retain sounds like a legal term. What does that mean?
Well, I would assume, people don't come and just, well, they might, but, if he has an hourly rate, I can't imagine it being more than a couple $100. I haven't, by the way, discussed this with him. I've met him in the past, months ago.
Commissioner North?
But I haven't,
sorry.
said, hey, I'm going to ask you to do this. It's just that I'd be intrigued to have him come and speak.
Commissioner Norris?
It seems to me that could be a second step. The retreat, I think, will be where we get all the baseline information, because in our current development plan calls for dense downtown. And so I think that for us to understand what the strategic plan that we're operating under and the plans for the downtown currently would be baseline information. And then if we wish to pursue that in more depth, certain pieces in more depth, it seems like that might be secondary. I'm very familiar with that plan. It seems to me that we should be familiar with what we're doing now and how that plan has been incorporated into the current plan before we talk about another one, it seems to me.
Commissioner Neely?
I was going to suggest, not retaining him nor bringing him in, but there were actually two plans.
Yeah.
And one plan was actually, I think, had 3 or 4 different alternatives in it as well. I think it'd be good if we can locate I'm sure we can, the copies of those plans. The first one was rejected by the Planning Commission because insufficient public involvement in the process, but there was a second one as well. And I don't know any reason why we can't look at those particular plans. That's part of that retreat effort.
Yeah, but I'm not sure about inviting the consultant.
No. I think the plans are there, and we'll be able to take a look at them.
Well, we have lots of plans to look at, and I think that would be really good at the retreat to understand all the work that's gone into where we are today. That's very key, I think.
How about other commissioners? What are your feelings?
It's fine.
I would be interested to learn more about any plan that has been done, and certainly would be interested in the work that you're talking about.
I as well would be interested in looking at those plans. Whether or not I need to talk to the planner at that meeting is another issue, but definitely consider the plans.
Okay, shall we take a look at putting the plans on the agenda and get copies of them for everybody? And then,
We'll have a packet for you, and I can include, I have the Crandall plan, because Commissioner Cedar sent that to me. I'm not sure the
There's
other
one
one.
that was done during Dan Powers' administration.
Okay, we'll see if we can find that, and we incorporate that, as well as, you know, you have, we're going to walk through the current Plan Wonder, which has many of those components. The question, not so much the plan, is how do you get there, and how do you finance some of this stuff, and how do you bring some of those individual
and then as a next
platforms to it.
step, at a future meeting, after we've looked at the plans at the retreat, bring the person who did the plan in. Does that sound okay with you, Jim?
Well, one thing I have a question, first of all. Is Mr. Leland going to be at the retreat?
Yes, here's kind of the layout right now. We're going to kind of go through many of the requests that you had. You'd asked for kind of a Urban Renewal 101, and Mr. Janik's going to come out and kind of walk through that, some of the legalities of that and how to do it. And plus, I've got some handouts that we've gathered that we'll also put in that packet. Mr. Leland will talk about the strategy that we put in place, and then he and I will talk a little bit about the plan that we're operating under, which would be a good time to kind of talk about these various plans and maybe some of those components and how they fit in there, as well as what we're trying to accomplish. And then it's really a question, and in those presentations, we'll try to answer many of the questions that have been raised. And then it'll really be a time for you to discuss, do you like the path we're on, and where we may be going. We'll also talk about some of the projects, particularly the cove and the rivers, which are big components. And again, to look again, is that the path we really want to go down, or do you want to do something different?
Wait.
Sure.
Commissioner Norris?
I think one of the outcomes I would expect from the retreat is that we do look at a work plan. You know, do we want that? You know, do we want to take a field trip to look at particular projects in the metro region? Do we want to bring consultants in, such as the one Jim has suggested, or others that might give us pieces to look at? Because we'll have a whole panoply of ideas, and I think to be able to maybe understand pieces better or to dig deeper into one, I think it's a great idea to set for a work plan.
Commissioner DeCita.
Yeah, just from what I'm hearing, and this is just the way I go about things. Having Mr. Janik and Mr. Leland is good. I'm really interested in being informed with what they have to say about urban renewal and the current planning process, because I know we've invested a lot in it. But I'm also here. I also always want to hear, one, alternative views, and two, even dissenting views, because they force us to face what we're doing and really think hard about if what we're doing is correct. We may, by such challenges, decide, yes, given these critiques, what we're doing is the right path. And I think it would be useful if we retained Mr. Crandall or anybody else who's an urban planning and design expert to come into the retreat and say, here's a devil's advocate view of things. Here's other perspectives on why you might consider doing something differently. And I think that can only be healthy. And I think that would make the retreat, and we have 6 hours. I would think that would make the retreat for me more stimulating, more fun, more vibrant.
Yeah, with a meal and 3:30 to 8:30, we don't have 6 hours. So,
I just glanced through that plan. I've looked at it before. I don't think you will find disagreements between what Mr. Crandall's talking about and the plan we're operating under. For instance, if you look at that plan closely, the cove is residential. If you look at that plan closely, they talk about improvements to McLaughlin Boulevard, much of what we're doing today. There are some different variants in there. There was discussion, too, about moving 99 away from the river, and the reality is that train left the station a long, long time ago, and we could talk about that, we could debate it, we could even want to do that. It would be very difficult to accomplish and very spendy. So I think what you will see is he and Mr. Leland will see most of the components very similar. The question's really going to be, how do you get there? Because there's a lot of usage in the Crandall plan with utilizing private property to do things different, and that's where, again, you're going to have some dollars, you're going to have to bring the owners in, and you're going to have to enter into a lot of different public-private partnerships to get that plan done. And again, comes back to the basis of what you have with the plan, and we'll go through the finances some. We can do some things, but without big projects that create increment, many of those things are a real stretch, and that's one
Okay,
thing the
wait,
Crandall
right
plan-
there, right there. To me, that is an assumption
No,
that something that could, a dissenter or someone who's an expert in urban development might offer a dissenting or alternative view on whether creating big projects that generate increment is the only way to go about this. And that's the kind of thing that is above my pay grade, but I'd really like someone to challenge that
Okay,
assumption.
you know, we need to get on because we've got a city commission meeting that's going to go on.
Yeah, let me just, one last word,
one-
is I'm not questioning there's some other ways to accomplish. With your current plan, without something that creates increment, you do not have the dollars to undertake some of the things that are in there. So you could piecemeal it, but you're going to do small projects, and without large amounts of increment right now, with where you're committed, you don't have anything to do anything else with. And therein, and no expert's going to look at what you have and say, you can pull money out of the air. So yeah, they might say you can do it different,
yeah.
but you can.
Let's-
But you got some realities.
We need to move on, and let's, I think at least I'm getting kind of the feeling around the table that let's look at the plans. After we've looked at the plans, we've had a retreat. If we want to call the expert in, we'll do that at a later time. We'll make that decision after retreat, so. Okay? Any other future agenda items anybody has? Okay, discussion items, minutes of the March 18th regular meeting.
I move adoption.
We have a motion for adoption of the March 18th minutes. Is there a second? We have discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Did you vote? Aye. Okay. Okay, it's 6-0. In favor. Approve amendment to LRS Architects Personal Services Agreement.
Good evening, Urban Renewal Commissioners. I'd like to do a couple things. One is just introduce the action item here that's on the agenda, and then as a related item, since we've got a few minutes here, I'd like to give you a little bit of an overview. It's related to this item of our lead certification process. And before I give you my comments, I'd like to introduce a couple of the key team members of our City Hall Development Consultant Group. Matt Newstrom from Cressa Partners.
You want to come on up?
If you want to wave. Matt's going to actually give part of this presentation,
Okay.
so we'll have Matt here anyway. And Paul Boundy from LRS Architects. Paul's going to just kind of, I think he's just here to kind of observe.
Okay.
And if we really need to ask him any questions, we'll grab him. But
Great.
So Matt is our project manager, and Paul is our principal architect on the project. So welcome both of them. The action item before you is sort of just a housekeeping item. We have an amendment to the LRS Personal Services Agreement. Again, LRS is our architecture firm. We've got a few different consultants working on the project. They're the architects, and we need to ask for an adjustment to that original agreement of $37,681, which would bring the total contract from the original $125,106 up to $167,787. The proposed changes in their agreement are related to several things. One is the associated time delays created by the city on some additional things, such as, for example, when we studied the windows issue and some things like that. The addition of the city commission chambers to City Hall, that was not originally anticipated in the agreement. Several revisions of the space programming and design related to the public works and community development location discussion. Design of a telecom system, basically the addition of some consultant work with our phone system that we need, parking lot improvements, including some design and some planning consultant work that was not originally anticipated in their contract. And then finally, the LEED certification-related items that the architect needs to add to their work level. Regarding the LEED process, we've decided to go forward with that based on previous discussion with the Urban Renewal Commission and just some discussion and recommendation in that regard. This is one piece of the LEED certification. We also have some contract dollars tied up committed with Matt's firm Cressa, with a commissioning agent company, and what else am I missing there? I think that's it.
Mechanical, electrical consultants.
Yes, some of that type of stuff. Those contracts, because of the dollar thresholds, don't have to come forward to Urban Renewal Commission. The whole package there is, I think, just a little over $50,000, including the lead work related lead work in this contract change that we're asking you for tonight. So what I'd like to do is, I guess I'll leave it to you. You can either take the action. The recommendation is to approve this amendment. You can take that action first, and then I can let Matt give you some background on the lead process, or we can do his comments first, and then you can take action because you might have some questions before you
Why don't we
approve
go
this.
ahead and do the comments?
So I'm going to just let Matt lead in with that discussion.
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. As we're seeing, every project, lots of projects that are coming up, people are going for that LEED certification. Tenants are vying for that. It's becoming very popular, and a lot of people are wondering, what is this LEED thing that we keep hearing about? So what is LEED? What does it stand for? It's an acronym for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And basically, in a nutshell, what it is, it's a third-party verification confirmation system through the U.S. Building Green Council, which is located back in Washington, D.C. So they're basically the ones that certify the construction, the operations, design of buildings. The City Hall project, we're moving forward with a track called Commercial Interiors, or CI. So depending on your project, you could have LEED for new construction, LEED core and shell, LEED for existing buildings, and a pre-developed site like the City Hall will be a commercial interiors. And we are going for a certification level. Certified is the base level. There's certified. Next step up is silver, gold, and then platinum. And right now we have a preliminary scorecard which is attached on the back side. And basically what that shows us is points that we can really count on right now, which are in the left-hand column. The points in the middle, which are maybes. And as we work through and continue the project, they're going to, hopefully we shift some of those over. And then the right column is too much money, or we can't achieve it with the building and the state that it's in. So again, we are going for the certification level right now. If you look at the point system on the back page, I believe it's 27 points. Gets us to silver. Right now we're at about 26. So we're really hoping to get across that line. Another thing that people always ask is, what is the cost of a LEED building? There's perceptions that costs are astronomical. In the case of this project, when I started working with the city back in October, we set a budget about $50,000. We're just about $45,000 committed right now, and that's about 2.25% over the construction budget that we have in place right now. So it's very small in the grand scheme of things. Some of the green strategies, I won't bore you with all the details on the back page. I'm willing to answer questions when I'm done here. But some notable things that we're providing is secured bike storage, showers and changing rooms for staff. We're shooting to reduce the lighting consumption by 25%. That's energy consumption. We're using low and non-emitting paints, carpets, adhesives, certified carpets. We're going with a carpet tile system that's highly recyclable and recycled, and it's has a long life. You have a stain or you wear out a portion, you can replace 10 square feet versus ripping up the whole room. We're using very high recycled content in all our construction materials, such as carpet, ceiling tiles, and the systems furnishing that we're going to be going for as well. We're purchasing Energy Star appliances, and we're going to make a commitment to purchasing 100% renewable energy through PGE. The other thing that's really nice is making sure that at least 75% of all building occupants have daylight and views. So pulling all the natural light into the core of the building. Our construction schedule at a high level is we're going to be advertising Monday for the bids, and we're looking at a move-in in late September, early October at this rate. And happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Neely?
It's, actually, it's not a question of this, it's a question related to this, but I don't think it involves, I comment out after we've gone ahead on this action.
Anybody else?
I'm just delighted to hear this.
I'd just like to add a couple things, and I guess kind of tagging on to what Commissioner Norris just said, that we feel really good about going forward in this process, and obviously being the city that we want to lead in our community to do that. So this is a great way to do that. Of course, our community development department is in one of the first LEED certified buildings in our city, area, county, something like that. So we're kind of already on that track.
County,
And
was privately.
yeah, this will be so we'll follow in that step. Also wanted to kind of give Matt an acknowledgement. He is actually certified. He's a LEED certified certifier or something to that effect.
LEED accredited professional.
So he's actually accredited by the agency that oversees this whole process. So he's a good leader for our LEED process.
Do we need a motion here? Commissioner Norris?
I
Well,
move.
wait one.
Oh, sorry.
I have a question about your policy for exceeding $150,000 on this particular contract. Can you help me understand that a little better?
Well, this is within. I ran this through our attorney's office as I do with any type of major contract amendment, and Bill Kabizman reviewed this and gave us the approval to go forward. And I think maybe your question relates to the original way that we went through the process, which was a direct appointment to save some time and expense in doing that. And there was a $150,000 threshold in doing the original agreement. We can't exceed that amount with your approval. That's part of the reason why we have to bring this particular piece forward to you. So long as the work was not originally anticipated. And I'm just kind of grabbing from memory here, remembering the discussions that Bill Kabizman and I had. The work was not originally anticipated, and that we didn't bypass or not provide the opportunity for somebody else to be competitive originally in the project because of what we're doing now. He believes strongly that we were fine in that regard. So,
So do you have your own rule set, or do you
Our
follow
own
model
purchasing-
rules, or, yeah?
we have a city purchasing policy which we follow, and then our city purchasing policy also reflects a lot of the state purchasing and procurement rules and
We're
laws.
not acting as the Public Contract Review Board in this action. We're just approving the allowance of additional funds through this contract?
No, you are acting as the contract review body in this case, because this is an urban renewal project. You are the contract board for urban renewal, so we are asking you to amend a contract.
So what is our policy as far as exceeding the $150,000?
In a nutshell, what I can tell you is, this is kind of a new one for me because of the way that we did this procurement. That's why when we went back to do this amendment to the contract, we ran this through our attorney's office, and that's typically, what we have to do is there are so many rules and procurement laws and so forth that things can get relatively complicated. Mm-hmm. Again, our attorney's office has advised us that this is well within our authority to do this and amend this contract in this manner.
Okay.
Without being a lawyer,
and it
that's
wasn't
probably the best I can
communicated
tell you.
to the Public Contract Review Board, of which we, the decision makers, are that board, and so we weren't given that communication or that authority guidance from the attorney. So I'm a little concerned that, I just want to make sure that we understand what we're doing within that context.
Did you have something to say, Mr. Patterson?
I was just going to give you the basic parameters for our contract award.
Microphone.
Yes, that works better. Is there are three levels. Again, small items that are below $25,000 we can do administratively. If it's 25 to 50, we get quotes usually from three vendors, and then if it's over 50,000, it's competitively bid. Now, there's a number of exceptions in there. This fits into that, and that's why when we run into that, that's we go to the attorney and say, can you do this under the contracting? In this case, he's indicated that you can do that.
Commissioner Neely.
And I'm pretty certain all these I guess listed 5 changes here are in fact based on discussions that you had with us. That is, they're essentially created by the commission.
That's correct, yes.
And so it's not something that they're asking our permission to do because they thought of these changes.
Correct.
They got the direction from us.
Commissioner Nacita, did you have your hand up?
No.
Oh, okay.
I did have a question.
Okay.
This is to the dollar amount. Fortunately, there aren't any cents included. Do you still have that $25,000 threshold above this? Because if you don't, I'm a little bit concerned that cost overruns or something might do something. So do you above? If we're to approve the $167,787 total, is there still the same level of discretion you just mentioned?
Yes, well, at least that's my understanding of it.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're amending the entire contract to this amount, so that becomes the contract amount then.
And then the 25,000 still has the.
I think
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
Should be a separate situation.
Commissioner Norris?
You ready for a motion?
Yes.
I move we approve the attached, the amendment number 1 to the personal services agreement with LRS Architects for the new City Hall project for the amount of $167,787 ceiling.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the recommended action on the contract. We have discussion. Roll call?
Commissioner Nacita,
I'm going to abstain on this one.
Commissioner Neely,
Aye.
Commissioner Norris,
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson,
Aye.
Commissioner Walters,
I also abstain.
Chair Slack.
Yes. Commissioner,
And now I'll ask
Neely.
my related question, and I'm sure it was a major component of the cost, but actually making the decision to design it for planning going in instead of Public Works, which was the original decision. And part of that logic was we'd have to do a redesign later on when Public Works moved from there to another location. My question is this, my understanding is the Public Works is going to move into where the current building planning facility is in the Red Soils, or not?
Well, what we're going to do, we're going to design the building for community development. We're going to move Public Works into that space, however, until they move to the other facility, then we'll move planning in. A couple of reasons for that. Part of it is just the dynamics of trying to work with the folks we have. The other is to ensure that we don't get crossways with the actions you've taken in regards to financing the community development space.
So the fact it's not really designed for Public Works, the fact that Nancy would probably
some
rather
issues.
be there than in a module.
Yeah, you have some of that going on, yes.
Okay. So there is not a
There'll be
a second move at all.
second move.
I mean, they'll be going, excuse me, the Public Works is still going to move into that facility,
Into the new city.
the new city,
hall, yes.
but it's not going to be
It's
designed
going to be
for Public
designed
Works.
for community development. There'll be some small modifications when you move community development in there, but we won't be redesigned, because it's going to be basically redesigned for community development going
Okay.
in there. There's a couple small spaces we'll have to change a little bit later, but that shouldn't be a big issue.
Okay.
we have any other questions? Hopefully not too many, since we have another meeting coming up here soon. Mr. Patterson, manager's report.
I just want to give you an update on kind of where some of the stuff I'm working on with the big projects and give you something to think about. Doesn't require a decision at the present time. I met with Mr. Janik yesterday. We're in the process of revising the development agreement with the Rivers. I talked with both Scott Parker and Senator Cal today, kind of indicated some of the basic changes. We still have some areas where I think there may be some disagreements, so I don't know if we're going to come to a meeting of the minds, but at least we're going to make those changes. Really, the biggest change has to do with the interchange, because we're anticipating that we will receive state funding for that, so we'll be deleting that from the DDA with the assumption of that. Don't know if folks will accept that major change. Definitely makes the project more financeable, if that's a term. But should the state money not come forward, then you may not have an interchange and you may not have a project. Now, again, there's some other areas in the DDA that we may or may not see eyeball to eyeball on. That's something until we get it to them we don't know. Some of those we might be able to work through, but again, we just may be at loggerheads. But basically, I think this will be the best offer we can put on the table. So hopefully in short order we'll know whether we have an agreement or we do not have an agreement. With Cove, you know that Kaiser withdrew from that arrangement, and we've been talking with PPS, and we'll continue to work with them to find a replacement here over the next couple of weeks. But without that component, or a component like that, we have not signed the development agreement and would not until we have a project comes forward. It raises an interesting question, because one of the things we were working on to move that project forward was a line of credit. And, of course, those things aren't, they don't hold those out forever until you sign on the dotted line to do that. And they are looking for us to close on that line of credit by the middle of May, as I recall. I think it's May 20th. We'll be talking with them about that, but without some type of program with the Cove, the question becomes, do you want to go forward? And there's some pluses and minuses both ways. The minuses, of course, is a line of credit does have some cost associated with it. There is an upfront cost, roughly about $15,000, to put that in place, and then there's some annual costs that you're going to incur by having that in place. And again, if you borrow money, then you're going to be paying an interest on that. The plus side of it, it would give you some cash to have on the books if you had another opportunity come up, which means that you could move a little faster because you have financing in place to deal with it. It's not, doesn't, again, one of the things, fallback there is you could go and if something did come up, work with the bank, see if you could put a line of credit in place at that time, or depending on when that came up, maybe at that point we'd be in a better position to an issue and bond note. So it's not that you can't do that at date. There's just some time constraints that you may run into depending on who you're working with, and you kind of heard that when we was going through the discussion with the Cove. My basic inclination right now, if we can't put together some type of arrangement in short order with the Cove to bring to you before then, is just to discontinue the discussions on the line of credit at the present time, unless you have other thoughts on that matter. So again, it's just really a sense of direction of where you want me to go on that, but that's kind of where I'm leaning right now. And again, we probably have a week or 10 days, maybe 15 days before we have to make a hard decision. But I don't have, unless you have it rather, I don't see any great reasons to incur the cost of a line of credit unless we have something along the lines of a project there to deal with.
Are you looking for us to give you a vote or decision tonight, or do you want to? I'm not sure.
Not a decision. I just really just kind of your feelings
Okay.
of whether you think I'm headed in the
Just
right direction,
kind of
or whether you
because-
really want us to consider a line of credit, and then we'd have to bring that to you for your approval, which we could do. At
I
the
know.
next
How
meeting.
does everybody feel, Commissioner Neely?
Oh, I don't, without a project, and it's, this has been about I guess this has been about a 5-year process so far.
Get a 2.5 for the Cove. Seems like 5. But.
Well, anyway, this is my 3rd year, and I think in my first year on the planning on the Parks and Recreation Department, when I had a different idea that I expressed was about 5 years ago. But anyway, what I would say would be that we have, without a project, I don't see any point in doing it myself.
Does anybody else have any different opinion?
Is this the only thing that you're speaking of at this time, whether to extend the line of credit?
Yeah.
Because if this doesn't come forward, I think there are other things we're going to have to discuss, too.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
one of them, I'll just put it forward, I think we shared the cost of the lease of the current site where the batch plant is.
we do,
We do.
yeah.
And I don't want that to be an ongoing thing
No.
either. So,
No,
I mean, I think there's several things here that we have made commitments to that may not, unless something materializes very quickly, that we have to look at.
And I'll check on that, because that lease expires at some point, and I need to...
I think it was a
that's
year
part of-
lease, but
yeah.
I don't know when it
Yeah,
expires.
I need to see what the status
Yeah.
is, because that will end.
Anything else? Oh, it sounds to me like everybody's leaning in the favor of letting the thing go if we don't have any kind of positive
Well,
movement.
that's kind of the direction I was heading. I just want to make sure you were comfortable with that, because there's some,
Anything else?
that's all I
With
have.
seeing no other, one thing, we do have the retreat coming up. Everybody has that on their calendar. That's May 15th now. I've some indication that it's going to be changing location, which I think it's going to be,
You chat with Terry today?
yeah. I'm thinking evidently because of some of the recording necessity for a public meeting and other
And
things.
PowerPoint.
The PowerPoint thing
all set up.
that looks like it will be here
Probably in here.
in this room, so. Anyway, with no other business, we're adjourned.